Welcome to the Gilchrist Experience. Today's guest, as always, co-host Graham Weatherspoon. We're waiting on two others, my grandson and Professor Jeffries. But due to weather, there's a delay. But I wanted to talk about what's happened this week in the news. We're all concerned about what happened with Sandra Bland back down in Texas, beginning of the year. And she supposedly committed suicide, and we're going to go over this case because people seem to have forgotten what happened with that. We've got a long piece on it, and Attorney Michael Hardy's in this, and I want to give you an account of what happened with Sandra Bland. You remember that, let's talk briefly about it before we go to the videotape. Now, you remember that case down in Texas where she called the officer a punk, but she used a different term. You know, she called him a pussy. Now, as a result, she supposedly committed suicide after being in prison over the weekend. And she's going to start a new job, and she had went to school down in Texas, so she had come back to get a job, all right? Give us your take on that. What happened to Sandra Bland?
It's a very troubling case in that we do know that she had informed them that she had a suicidal tendency.
She did.
Prior. She had thought about suicide, and in a case like that, that person is to be watched at all times.
So you think she committed suicide?
Well, I don't know. This is the problem. If a person says they had suicidal tendencies in the past, you don't know what will push them over the edge. And when a person is in custody, it is the responsibility of the agency that is holding them to make sure that nothing happens to them. Once a person is taken into custody, the department is liable for their overall well-being. I had a guy whom I arrested for a robbery in the early morning in Lower Manhattan. Had him cuffed on the platform at Canal Street. He robbed a woman. And as I'm talking to the lady, the guy bolts, and he jumps into the tracks in front of an oncoming A train. All right? He had my cuffs on him. He was my responsibility.
And you went down and saved him?
I had to go after him. So I had to jump
Graham,
in the tracks.
that's only in the movies.
No, look,
Graham.
if you have a prisoner, if I take a prisoner, any police officer takes a prisoner into custody, and that person dies in your custody, you got some serious problems. So I had to take every effort that I could to get to this guy before the train got to him. Fortunately, I got to him before the train got to him, and the motorman stopped the train ahead of time. But then he realized he wasn't going to hit, so he went to the third rail to step on the third rail, which is when I snatched him up. And we stumbled over in between the two third rails. He was going to kill himself. He said he wasn't going back to Rikers Island. So once I put the cuffs on him, he was my responsibility.
But you're a rare breed of police officer.
You know,
come on. I mean, we only see that in the movies.
Well, things like that happen, but people don't talk about that stuff, you know. And I wasn't the kind of person that put in for a lot of commendations because of the stuff I did. If someone wanted to give me an award, then that was on the department. I was not writing up every case that I had to get an award. But the thing is that...
What about the case of Sandra Bland?
Sandra Bland. She had stated...
And the way this police officer treated her.
Yeah.
And how we should react to these police officers, since we know this is the South.
Now, they had a video camera on the car. They had a dash cam in the car. And she comes out of the car, and then she goes off camera. He told her to step to the rear of the car, and she goes off the frame of the car, and something is happening over there. We can hear, but we cannot see.
I have the videotape of that.
Okay, so ultimately, she's in a cell, and they allege that she committed suicide. I've been in a situation where a guy hanged himself in a command in Brooklyn. I was not the arresting officer, but I was there doing an investigation, and we heard the screaming and go back, and the guy has hanged himself literally in the cell. Wow. Fortunately, we were able to revive him, and I wanted to choke the police officer who was sitting in front of the cell doing his paperwork while the guy hanged himself.
Ooh.
And the lieutenant on the desk who was responsible, as per the patrol guide, to take the shoelaces, the guy had airborne jump boots on with the long leather thongs. The lieutenant didn't take the shoestrings, nor did the arresting officer.
They didn't think of it.
Well, the lieutenant, the normal routine is the cop takes the laces. The book says the lieutenant is supposed to take the laces. But a desk officer never takes the laces from a prisoner. It's always the arresting officer. But this officer is writing and doesn't see the guy take the laces out of his boots and hang himself on an electrical conduit passing through the cell. So Joe and I were able to revive this guy. And I told the cop, I said, if we can't revive this guy, I'm going to break your neck in here. Because I don't need to be caught up in some stupidness behind your inability to do your job. But the guy actually hanged himself right there in the cell. The coroner said that it was a suicide. And you always have to have an independent pathologist to review in a case like this.
But did you hear about when it came back, nobody was indicted?
Nobody was indicted.
But they're looking at the arresting officer.
Well,
all right, let's do that.
Ongoing investigation.
I'm going to give you a good view, give you a little review of what actually happened. Let's play the video and we'll come back at you. It's a case study on how you should react to a police officer. All right?
People across the country are still asking the question how one woman went from being pulled over for a routine traffic violation to dead in a jail cell 3 days later. Sandra Bland, you've probably heard that name by now, the Chicago woman who was in Texas for a job interview and was found dead in her jail cell on July 13th. Well, the Waller County Police Department says she hung herself with a plastic garbage bag. Her family insists that's impossible. At a press conference yesterday, the captain of the sheriff's office said questions remain, but that it had been ruled a suicide.
Seeing that there has been a great scrutiny by outside sources into the cause of Miss Bland's death, I want to make clear that the death of Miss Bland was a tragic incident, not one of criminal intent.
Now the county's district attorney says her death is being examined as thoroughly as a murder investigation, as it is too early to determine the cause. Police say Bland was arrested for resisting arrest and assaulting an officer, but so far the only video of the incident shows Bland on the ground. Authorities are expected to release their dash cam of the arrest later today. But for now, new video spanning the time leading up to her death has been released, revealing that there was little to no movement in the hallway outside of her cell before her body was discovered at 9 in the morning. And police claim they made contact with her over an hour before via the intercom. Well, for more insight on this story and how it fits into a broader discussion about police procedure, I'm joined now by attorney Michael Hardy, general counsel to the National Action Network. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Hardy. Can you just begin by explaining your initial reaction to Miss Bland's death? As an attorney, did anything catch your attention in terms of procedural abnormalities?
Well, I think, like her family, many are really shocked by what happened because it was so sudden and so unexpected based on what everyone has said about her character, notwithstanding some of the other information about, you know, her suffering from depression and other things. And so I think it's very key that this gets looked into. I mean, it really says something very significant about this notion of contempt of cop, if you will. You know, the fact that she may or may not wanted to put out her cigarette was not any cause for that officer to engage her in the way that he did, which should not have led to an arrest at all. She should have never been in that jail cell.
Well, we also have to see why the police have waited so long to release the dash cam video. We should be getting that any moment. But considering all the evidence that exists currently in the case is sparse video footage and police testimony, why do you think the DA used the word murder when describing the investigation into her death?
Well, again, you know, you're going to have to ask the district attorney that, but certainly if suicide, which is a form of homicide, it's a self-inflicted homicide, but if somehow he now has some evidence to suggest that it may be something other than a suicide, then of course it would be some level of a homicide which could be anything from a murder to some form of intentional or unintentional manslaughter.
And what's so difficult about this case is that we can see the video footage that exists outside of her cell, but what can be done to really find out what happens in future cases like this? I mean, it seems like a violation of privacy to put cameras in actual cells, but how do you see as the solution here in terms of the difficult question here is that we don't know because there's no video evidence or any evidence that really exists other than, like I said, whatever the police are going to say.
Right. Well, there are several things. It's not really clear, and at least there's been no information that there have been any other detainees who may have been in the prison or in the detention center at that time. And of course, you don't know whether or not there may be other employees of the facility that saw something or heard something, and they may come forward in the course of the investigation. Of course, the videotape, as shown, does not seem to suggest that someone went into the cell during that period. But again, you don't know where all of the evidence comes from, and obviously the district attorney is the person that's on point and getting most of that information. I would add, though, that I don't know if it's something about that particular detention center, but as you know, there was an earlier hanging of an inmate as a result of an assault, an alleged assault against an officer. So I think that investigation is also still pending, and so clearly the district attorney wants to be careful. And if, of course, if it was not self-inflicted, then it would have to be some other form of homicide.
Right, and then my question for you is, someone in Miss Bland's case who was really only pulled over for a traffic violation, can't emphasize that enough, and then arrested for what they say is resisting arrest, how typical as an attorney would it be for her to be detained in a cell alone?
Well, it may not be atypical for her in that county to be in a cell alone, depending on what the arrest traffic was like on that evening. What's more interesting, given what people know to be the facts of the situation, is why she was detained at all and not given a ticket or something to simply to appear in court at a later date.
Right.
We now know that a lot of this, again, occurred as a result of the police officer feeling as though his authority was being challenged, and there's nothing unconstitutional or illegal about someone doing the conduct that she engaged in.
And not only that, but she was detained for 3 days. I want to ask you one more question. We don't have very much time, but it's something that I'm really curious about. Why do you think Miss Bland's death has attracted so much mainstream media attention? I mean, other women of color have died at the hands of police, cases like Rekia Boyd and Miriam Carey, for example, and the mainstream media remains relatively silent.
Well, look, I think we're in a period now where this nation has been viewing a number of deaths, particularly of people of color, in the hands of policing that may not have been legitimate situations. In other words, wrongful deaths. And so I think the situation that she's engaged in, the fact that she was there to begin a new job, all of that leads a lot of interest, and people really want to get some straight answers. And of course, the family is demanding answers.
They do. They've asked for an independent autopsy, and we'll have to wait and see whether or not any of their calls for answers will be answered, really. Michael Hardy, General Counsel to the National Action Network, I appreciate you coming on.
As you see, that's my good friend Michael Hardy from NAN. Now, what's so curious about this case is that this video we just watched was before we had the cam, the police car cam, and all the conversations that they had. This is the private video where, in the police video, you don't see the side view of what they're doing, or you don't see the view of her on the ground and how they're torturing her. And they're supposedly have almost broken her back. Like
Well,
Freddie Gray.
If there was any damage to her spine, that would come up in the pathology report. And what I would be looking for in this case, she did say that she had gone through some depression and whatnot earlier.
Okay.
And you know, a disturbing thing is the
Well, Hardy
quality.
mentioned that too.
Yeah, the quality of the video is not good because you cannot see who's in the cell. You can't see into the cell. You can't even tell that there's anybody in there. So
Well, that was on the side. The cell is down the way. It wasn't even. No,
that was not the cell. There's a camera
the cell
pointing
was
into
down
a cell.
the hall from where we were looking.
So what did they present that for? If that's not the
There
video,
were no cameras down there by the cell.
well then that's a waste of time.
Yeah.
That whole thing and the clarity of that video is like many of the
Well, it
videos you
didn't
see
show
on
the-
television.
didn't show the
you can't
cell at
see.
all.
So let's look at a couple of things. When you're in a cell, there's no wastebasket.
But I've seen pictures of the cell, and they had a big garbage can in it, and
They
it was
might
two
have put-
bunk beds in
They
there.
might have put one in there, but I've never gone in a cell, and I've never put a prisoner in the cell that had a garbage pail in it.
Well, this actually
Not in
had a
New
garbage.
York.
I wish I had a picture of the garbage can.
They
that
could have
had
put
in
that
there,
in there. Another thing.
with a big black garbage
no,
bag in it.
No. We don't put stuff in a cell that a person can use to facilitate a suicide or even a homicide. We take your belt, your shoelaces, anything that you can use.
But this is Texas. They do things backwards.
Well, this is my point, which is going to take me to the next point. Where is the garbage bag that they said she hanged herself with? Because if she hanged herself with a garbage bag, I could dust that entire bag. I don't care if it's a little bag or a big bag. I can dust that bag to get the prints off of that bag.
Right.
Because you would have to roll that bag up in order to hang yourself.
Yeah, really. That's
We
kinda
can
odd.
take a fraction of an inch of your fingerprint and match it. We could take the edge of a match, a paper match, the edge of the match, we can match that fingerprint, just that portion.
Maybe this is a poor town where they don't have all these
Well,
modern
Texas is noted
technology.
for, number one, executing more people than
Yeah.
any other state.
Right.
They're noted also for black people. Everybody who questionably dies is theoretically a suicide
Right.
in the South. And we still have people being found that, oh, they hanged themselves. So if the DA is now saying this is a murder investigation, as Michael said, he has to know more. He has to have more information
Right.
than what was initially put forth. And what went on, we know she went in there healthy. Why was she in there for 3 days?
That's
Another thing.
There's the question.
If she stated that she
There's
had
a real
suffered from
question.
depression and other things, she is to be
Did
monitored.
she state that?
Yes, she did. Yes, she did. That was one of the things that came out at the beginning of this whole investigation. So if you have somebody that suffered with depression, there ought to be somebody monitoring them at all times.
Well, they obviously didn't care.
Well, obviously not. But the question is,
Did she commit suicide?
did she commit suicide?
All right, you know what we're going to do? We're going to give you guys out there a chance to call in and give your opinion. All right? Well, let's put a call-up number, and I'd be interested in hear what subject matter we're talking about if you can ask questions about what we're talking about. All right? Now, all you callers out there are ready to call in, right? December 23rd.
In our commands, many of the commands, the desk officer could look from where he's sitting to the cell in the transit police.
Right.
So the desk officer could see any prisoner that was in it. Not every command, but in some of the commands. But you have somebody overnight, there should be some monitoring,
Yeah.
and it should be log entries,
Right.
right? Prisoner was inspected, found to be asleep, whatever, and even if they're asleep, you go in, you wake them up, make sure they're alive.
But she was alive an hour before she supposedly committed suicide. Somebody that went in there and checked on her.
Another thing, the video. They're going to have to send that video down to the FBI because you can erase.
Right, of course.
And they can erase, read, and dub it. They can cut just as you do with video. You can
Right.
cut and splice exactly where you want to cut and splice.
Of course.
So they're going to have to send everything down to the FBI labs to have them analyze that thing by 1/10 of a second, 100th of a second.
Well, it has
to see
time
if it
code
has
on
been.
it, so they can't erase the time code most of the time. You know, if they have that much sophistication. Oh, we have one caller. Hopefully it's about the subject matter we're talking about. All right? Yes, caller. Who's calling?
Good afternoon, gentlemen.
Good afternoon.
Who's calling? What's your name?
This is Rod, son of MJQ, Connie K.
Ah, how you doing, man?
All right.
All right. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Happy holidays to you both.
Thank you.
Happy holiday.
I want to go over a few things that probably wasn't addressed in that Michael Hardy interview, and if people were really paying attention to this case when it first hit the news, they would, because me growing up with Connie K and having Gil Noble living in the same building, if you didn't watch Like It Is on Sunday, you were in trouble.
Right.
And that means you have to pay attention to what you're listening to.
Right.
Sandra Bland, in the cell directly across from her, there was a woman that was interviewed, okay? And she said that she was speaking with Sandra Bland. And she also said that Sandra Bland was very depressed and upset because nobody would come bail her out. And she was sitting there for 3 days. She kept making, she made numerous phone calls, and she couldn't either get a response or nobody refused to come down and bail her out. The last time they checked on her was a half an hour before she was found. I think they gave her a bag of potato chips and something else, and then she was found, hung in her cell. The injuries around her neck, according to the coroner, were also consistent with someone being hung. There's no resistance was shown, no fight was put up. Now, I can't understand, if you saw the video, Sandra Bland was a pretty feisty woman.
Yes.
And she didn't take no stuff. And if somebody actually went in there to harm her, I can't see why there are no screams, there's no fight, there's no nothing. I can't see Sandra Bland. If somebody came in there to harm her, I can't see her not putting up a fight. And personally, I know nobody's going to agree with what I have to say, but I do believe it was a suicide because she was frustrated. She was upset.
Depressed. Yeah.
And it's just like Brother Witherspoon said, a person that's suicidal should also be watched 100%. And I think the system failed Sandra Bland in that case. And if anybody should be indicted, it's somebody. It's not because somebody was not there to watch her. And unfortunately, I really think this woman, because of her condition, she did commit suicide.
Wow. Well, thank you, my brother.
That sounds reasonable.
It's very constructive. You know what? I know you watch everything, but thank you for your opinion.
Yeah,
But it makes sense. It makes sense.
No problem. No problem.
All right.
It makes sense. I know we're having a lot of problems with police out here.
But she was such a feisty woman. It's kind of hard to believe that she.
But depression.
Not going out without a fight, a struggle, or something.
So since there's no struggle, you figure that she through depression. Well, you can get depressed and really because nobody came to bail her out.
Nobody, came. That's frustrating when you're sitting there and it's only $500 and you can't get out.
Is that all it was? Yeah. Oh, all right. All right. Next caller. Thank you for calling, my man. All right.
Hello?
Next caller. Yes, sir.
Hi.
Hey.
Who's
how are
calling? Identify yourself, please.
you? Can you hear me? Am I?
Yes,
Identify
you're on.
yourself.
Oh, okay.
Just tell me who you are.
Oh, yeah. Brother Io from Harlem. How you doing, Brother Gilchrist?
Hi.
Brother Wood.
Good afternoon.
Brother
Afternoon.
Weatherspoon, how you doing? I'm good.
All right.
Happy holidays.
Merry Christmas.
Yeah, Merry Christmas. And Tefu, all that. Happy New Year. My question is, I got a question. And I absolutely reject the notion that she killed herself.
Okay.
I absolutely reject it. With every fiber in my DNA, every chakra in my being. Of course, she didn't kill herself. And who are we to examine her mental state, have a psychology degree, a psychiatric degree, that we don't know what level of depression she was. Anybody can be depressed. Anybody sit behind bars away from home. You know, you got to understand what the situation was. And we don't know what the dichotomy of her family situation was, but I don't think, she killed herself. And like Mr. Weatherspoon said, I want to see the forensics on the bag. And why did they release a tape like that? And why don't they have cameras in a place like that? But my question to you, brothers, is this: what is the repercussions of this? Will there be some retaliation? Is this going to continue? And will Rahm Emanuel step down? Have a happy New Year. Be safe. Watch your back. I love you, brothers.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank
Be
you.
well.
You know, one thing about the Sandra Bland case, I seriously had doubted that she committed suicide myself. When you see her videotapes and you see how feisty she is, but the first caller, my brother, mentioned that if there was any attempt to kill her, there should have been a fight. Because she was feisty enough to really fight it. I didn't
Right.
think about that.
There was a young lady in North Carolina back in the late 60s that killed a jailer. I can't remember her name, but the jailer went into her cell. She was a young African-American sister. And she killed him. It was a big to-do. And I was in North Carolina at the time, and the white people were, rah, rah, rah. And the guy in the store, he said, well, what are you thinking? I said, well, she was justified in killing him. What was he doing in her cell? He was not a matron. He had no business going in there. That's a female prisoner.
Right, okay.
Now, she put up a fight, and she killed that guy.
Okay.
And he turned out to be a real piece of crap.
So Sandra Bland.
Here, as with Sandra Bland, we knew she would fight.
Right.
She spoke of depression. Now, remember, the mental state that she's in at the time she stopped, and the mental state that she's in after spending 3 days.
Yeah.
And as he said, nobody would come to bail her out.
Right.
So
See, I didn't know all that.
what is your personal
Yeah,
value
yeah.
and self-worth if your own family is saying, no, we're not coming for you? See, that prior depression, that could play on her. We don't know. I'm not a psychologist, but you're there for 3 days. And now
nobody
it
will
says
come for
nobody
$500.
knows. But again, I need to see the forensics. Another thing, when you hang yourself, we can tell the difference between a person who was hanged and a person that was choked. We can tell the difference between the two. And then again, there was no evidence of a struggle. But that plastic bag is key. Never should have been in the cell, not even a garbage pail should have been in the cell. You just have a toilet, if anything, and that's it. That's all that's in the cell. And in a holding cell, there is no toilet. You're taken from the holding cell to a toilet and brought back to the holding cell. So if you're in a precinct, there's no toilet in the cell. You have to be taken to the toilet and brought back to the cell. It's just a bench. There's no in New York, there are no waste cans. But I would need to see, a pathologist would look. We're looking for certain things. We're looking for a broken hyoid bone. We're looking for capillaries which are ruptured in the eye. And if those are not there, it was not a hanging, right? So,
I just thought of this. This happened Sunday night, right?
yeah, she was arrested on a Friday, was it?
Yeah.
On Friday.
So Friday, Saturday,
and Sunday.
Sunday. She had to wait for Monday morning anyway.
To get to court. Because the judge
So-
isn't coming in on the weekend.
Yeah, so why couldn't she have the patience to wait till Monday morning to go to court and be bailed out?
Again, speaking to the state of mind, we don't know her state of mind.
But I mean, you gotta have enough rationale to think that
But
you
that's
gotta wait till
rational
Monday.
thinking for
But
you.
you gotta wait till Monday morning
That's
to get
rational
out.
thinking for you. The fact is, her family is not willing to come and get her. Even though she would have to come back to court, they're not willing to come and get her.
Well, they couldn't
get
come
her
get
out
her
of there.
until Monday morning anyway.
You come and bail anybody. You can bail a person out at any time. Just
On
show
Sunday?
up and pay. Yeah, yeah.
On a Sunday, you can come bail somebody out.
She was arrested Friday. They could have come Saturday.
Okay.
All right?
No.
They could have come Saturday. They could have come Friday night. It was daytime when she was arrested. They could have
That's
come
right.
Friday
That's
evening. I don't know how far from the family she was arrested.
Chicago to Texas.
But
To
that's
get
right. She
down
was
there.
going. She
Yeah,
was going
she was in
to
Texas.
start a new job. We have another call on.
All right.
Another caller.
All right, yes, caller. Yes?
Hello.
Yeah. Hi. Good afternoon.
Good evening. Good
Your
afternoon.
Yeah. My name
Identify
is
yourself.
from Manhattan.
Okay.
Yeah. Some other information that I found out this morning regarding the Sandra Bland case. The bail was not $500. It was $5,000.
$5,000?
Yeah.
How could that possibly be?
That's the question. Why on a traffic violation a bail that high?
$5,000?
Yeah.
Well, the bail
Well,
would
that
have to
doesn't make any
correspond
sense.
to the charge.
That's ridiculous.
And did the officer charge her with assault, with resisting arrest?
Well, what kind of
What-
charge was that?
Well, if it's assault or attempted assault on a police
So on
officer,
$5,000, how much do you have to put up?
they'll throw the book at you for trying to assault a police officer and resisting arrest.
So you mean that's 10% of $500,000?
No, it
What
could
are
be
you talking about?
5,000 cash.
5,000
It
cash?
could be cash or security bond. If it was 5,000, you could put up to 10% and go. But again, this is Texas. I don't know how they
So
do
that's
their
where they
stuff
got
in
the
Texas.
500. $5,000 bail, and you put up 10%, which is 500. Caller?
Yes. So maybe that's it then. But one additional thing I saw on the news this morning, there was a camera of her in a cell, a photograph of her in a cell. I don't know when it was taken. I think it was probably when she was first arrested. She was in the cell. and
That's when she was
officer
being
in
booked.
there,
I
in
saw
and
that
out the
one.
cell. So there was a camera on that particular cell, but it wasn't shown on the general news stations. But I did see it this morning on a news station on your Manhattan cable station this morning.
You know, the preceding caller asked about Rahm Emanuel also. And the cover-up in Chicago. This guy McCarthy, the chief or the police commissioner in Chicago, he was arrested when he worked for NYPD. He was arrested in Rockland County for assault. They didn't fire him, they let him keep his job. He then retired. He put in for the police commissioner's job in Newark, New Jersey. Booker was giving him the spot. We went to Newark to speak to their city council to admonish them and tell them not to hire this guy because he was bad news. He didn't make it in Newark. He left Newark and he went to Chicago. And that case is a year old and we're just finding out about what went on in that case. And look at the time frame with the Brown case and the case in Chicago. They will cover and hide what they can if they have powder kegs coming up in different areas of the country. And this is not coincidental. It was definitely planned, and Rahm Emanuel had to be in on it.
Oh,
They
yeah,
didn't want
there's
the
no
world
doubt.
to know
There's no
there's a
doubt.
problem in Chicago, there's a problem down here, there's a problem there, there's a all of these problems with the police. And now it just comes out that this young boy was shot to death. You know, they treat dogs better than they treat black people in many parts of the country.
Well, that was hard to watch.
So that
And you
case,
noticed that in that case, the video didn't show any audio.
no.
No audio.
But the
Now,
young man was walking away. He was walking on
Yeah,
a
of
diagonal.
course
You
he
can
was.
see him cross the yellow
Yeah.
line in the street. He's walking away from the officers. He poses no threat.
But he had a knife in his hand.
A knife cannot
That
cut you
far away.
if you're 30 feet away. All right? It doesn't cut you. All right? And he's not walking towards the officers or anybody else. He's walking away. He's walking away from the officers when they shot him.
All right, next caller, please.
Gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank
All
you.
right, thank you for calling.
Thank you. Hello?
Next caller, please.
Hello?
Yes.
You're on.
Hey, Brother Graham, Brother Gilchrist. I just want to call back real quick. I got some information for you. I was
Oh,
watching Democracy Now! You guys can check it out this morning. They had Sandra Bland's mother. And Sandra
Yeah, I
Bland-
saw that.
Yeah, good. So the attorney said the reason why the bail was $5,000 is because he lied. He lied about the information.
He lied about what she said or what she had did, and he also lied what he had did. And so, by law, I guess down there, the judge had to do the reasonable thing. So, but I still don't think that is a situation. I'm sure that lady's been through a lot more worse, dark times than that. I know. I can't imagine what she was going through. But I still think we need to stay true to the forensics. We need the absolute facts. And in the same case with the Rahm Emanuel. And I plead with you. What is your prediction, Mr. Graham? He is going to step down.
No, he's not going to step down.
He's going to have to. I mean, he walked into a classroom.
No,
he walked into a classroom and 60, and the kids in the classroom, they were chanting 16 shots, 16 shots, 16 shots. This was on Democracy Now! He's going to step down. It's going to happen.
Let me give you another one.
They're going to have to recall him.
They would have to recall him.
Yeah.
He's too brazen not to step down.
Yep.
He's too brazen to step down. He's not going to step down. I give you another scenario. I was with Katiatu Diallo on Friday. And, they just promoted Kenneth Boss, who was one of the officers that murdered her son. Now, 15 months prior to that incident, Kenneth Boss murdered a guy in the 75th Precinct in Brooklyn.
Right.
Shot him in the back, shot an alleged witness in the back, in the hip. Now, Patrick Bailey bled to death. And there was a meeting that was held in Mayor Giuliani's office between myself, Giuliani, Howard Safer, and the first deputy commissioner a week after Amadou was murdered. And I called that meeting with the mayor because of the fact that here was a cop that shot somebody in the back and killed him, lied about what happened. The case was still pending with D.A. Hines in Brooklyn, and we know what that means.
Right.
And then they moved him to the street crime unit where they rule the night, and he kills Amadou Diallo, who never reached.
Remind people what year that was.
Reached. The first shooting was 1998. The second was 1999. Now, Amadou never reached. He never crouched. He never did any of that. He was gunned down, standing at his front door. Did an analysis of all the bullet trajectories in that door. I did it up there then.
But what was happening in the street? You mentioned it before. There was something happening in the street.
They didn't want the general public to know that this cop, Kenneth Boss, killed another black man 15 months prior. It was Charles Hines that put that case on a back burner in his office. And not until Kenneth Boss killed Amadou Diallo did they bring the case forward to do a quick whitewash. Why? Because you don't want the general public to know that this cop has killed 2 black people in 15 months.
Right.
All right? And the family attorney, Casilda Ropes Simpson, called me, and I went through every piece of paper on that case. That was a murder.
Yeah.
It wasn't. And Charles Hines summarily
got rid of it. What were
it.
the cops doing in meeting? And you said that there was something going down in the
There was
street.
a clandestine meeting on the block there on Wheeler Avenue between those 4 cops, a black Mercedes-Benz with diplomatic plates, and a red Camaro.
So they thought Diallo was witness to the...
He was witness to whatever was going on. The members, the occupants of the black Mercedes got in their car. The people in the red Camaro got in their car, and the black Mercedes had diplomatic plates.
Ah. Now you were
The
detective.
4 officers, no, I was retired.
You retired with that
The
time.
4 officers went over to Amadou and gunned him down in his doorway. All right? One stood right up on
What could he have seen?
We don't know. But I'll tell you something else. There was a 4th car up the block that was surveilling the diplomatic vehicle. Those were federal agents surveilling the diplomatic vehicle, the
so
black
they send
car.
the city cops after whoever's watching.
Not the feds. The feds are just watching.
No, I'm saying the city cops were the one that attacked Diallo.
Yeah. So as they're shooting, the feds come by because the Mercedes is pulling off. The feds roll by to maintain surveillance on this diplomatic vehicle.
Whoa.
They're feds, they're not getting involved in a local matter, and they keep rolling. And that's information that I obtained from 2 independent sources in 2 different counties. All right? So here we have Kenneth Boss now, still working. He was assigned to the Emergency Service Division in Brooklyn. Now he's promoted to sergeant. You know, there's no statute of limitations on murder.
That's right.
But the way in which they bring out information, they time it,
Yeah.
Because they don't want too many things popping off at the same time. And this is the same thing with Rahm Emanuel and the Brown case. You know, the timing on them, because you want to keep things, you want to keep the Negroes quiet.
Right.
You know, everybody says, you know, you got to ask for calm.
Oh, we got a lot of calls holding.
Okay,
Well,
will he be okay. He may not step down, but will he be recalled though?
That's up to the
Will
people.
he be recalled?
I don't think so.
That's up to the people to insist it.
They'll rig it somehow how he stays on board.
Well, thank you so much.
All right.
Thank you. Merry Christmas.
You too.
Well, let's run a video on Kwanzaa, and we have Dr. Jeffries on in the background here. He's coming on in a minute. So run the Kwanzaa video, and we'll be right back at you. All right?
On a calendar full of centuries-old celebrations, Kwanzaa is the baby of the bunch.
Habari gani? Umoja.
In a world being rapidly homogenized, Kwanzaa was created in the hope that people of African descent might keep and celebrate their shared cultural heritage. If this Afrocentric holiday is still new to you, take heart. It's got a relatively short history to catch up on. The 1960s was a time of great socio-political upheaval in the United States, when millions of Americans were standing up to demand their civil rights. For many African Americans, the nation's slow march toward desegregation was encouraging. There was also renewed emphasis on black pride and a return to African roots. In 1966, Dr. Maulana Karenga, now a Black Studies professor at California State University, introduced Kwanzaa, a 7-day social holiday created to celebrate black identity, encourage unity, and preserve African culture. The name of the holiday is derived from the Swahili phrase Matunda ya Kwanzaa, which translates roughly as first fruits. At an inaugural ceremony for the new holiday, 7 children volunteered to carry the 6 letters in the word Kwanzaa. Rather than leave one child out, the holiday's spelling inherited a spare A at its end. Though Dr. Karenga intended Kwanzaa to be a social holiday rather than a religious one,
I like how you combine the 2 pieces.
he shrewdly specified that it was to be observed from December 26th through January 1st, the week between Christmas and New Year's. The timing was no accident. In the few decades since its inception, it has come to be celebrated by millions worldwide. Kwanzaa displays are rife with symbolism, with unity a strong theme of the holiday. One important tradition is the passing of the Unity Cup. Family members and guests sip from the cup and pour it in memory of their ancestors. The kinara, a candelabra that represents the original stalk from which all African ancestors originate, holds 7 candles, each representing one of the 7 principles of Kwanzaa. Umoja, or unity, is represented by the center black candle. On one side are 3 red candles, symbolizing self-determination, cooperative economics, and creativity. On the other side of the umoja are 3 green candles, signifying collective work, purpose, and faith. Celebrations often include song, dance, and African drums. Though originally intended as a holiday of solidarity, in later years, Dr. Karenga took pains to emphasize that Kwanzaa's message and reach could be so much greater. Just as millions celebrate Irish culture on St. Paddy's Day and Mexican culture on Cinco de Mayo, Kwanzaa has grown to fulfill Dr. Karenga's vision, the vision that people of all stripes celebrate the African culture and spirit.
Welcome back. Now, Doc, you and I were raised in the 30s and 40s. We're old men. All we knew is Santa Claus.
That's right. Yeah, that's right.
I mean, these new bucks here talking about Kwanzaa and stuff. And it was started in '66. Now, by '66, I was an old salt, and so were you. Now, what do you call this African tradition?
Well,
And spoil, how about Santa Claus?
Well, in other
Just
words,
because he was white, right?
the significance of Santa Claus is
no, just because he was white, we got to forget about Santa Claus, right?
but the significance of the brainwashing process of Santa Claus means a lot to me, because I can still see the sucker eating my mother's cakes and pies in the kitchen. And my older cousin said, "This fool thinks that there was a Santa Claus." But I thought it's still in my mind. I can still see him.
Wasn't he coming to collect the rent?
I mean, you youngsters have to really understand what the 40s and 50s were like.
Coca-Cola.
It was such a brainwashing.
It
this
was.
Santa Claus thing.
It
But I
was.
love Christmas time.
But what we need to understand, that's America. America is commercialization of everything.
Right.
Whether you're talking about Valentine's Day or Columbus Day. But the Christmas time is the worst commercialization of all. It's not a question of the birth of Jesus. It's a question of buying something, getting gifts. And so that's the brainwashing process.
Right.
So I'm glad that now we're talking about Black Friday in the sense of black people need to save their monies and do something with it. But Dr. Karanga was a part of the 60s.
Right.
And the 60s was the period of the African American, African Caribbean Revolution. And so there were institutions that emerged. It was at that point that you had the March on Washington, led by Reverend King, 63.
66.
64, 65.
I mean, Kwanzaa was 66.
Yes, Malcolm comes up with the OAAU, the Organization of African Unity, to match the OAU, which was the linkage of the African states themselves. And then in 65, 66, you got the Black Power movement.
Right.
And so Dr. Karanga fits right into this growing African consciousness and taking control of your culture in order to control your economics and your politics. So it was an ingenious effort by the brother to give us something to hang on besides St. Nicholas with his toys. And we didn't even have a chimney. So we was, we bought that thing, looking under the Christmas tree.
How old were you before you realized that Santa Claus didn't exist?
I can still see the sucker, so so I'm glad that Dr. Malana Karanga created this holiday so other people don't get bamboozled. Dr. Wade Nobles talked about mimetic ideation, ideas that are implanted in your mind, and those ideas guide your behavior. And seriously, my cousins really beat me up because they knew there was no damn Santa Claus.
Right.
And I had to stand my ground. I saw the sucker eating the pies. But that was something that I imagined that stayed with me.
How old were you?
Well, I was born in 1937. I was born in 1937.
Brainwashing from 37.
The brainwash, we have to understand, whoever controls the images and the ideas controls what I call the self-consciousness, the self-development, and the self-understanding and your group consciousness. So we've got to be able to thank Dr. Malana Karanga and those who have made this celebrated by tens of millions around the world. I go to England and they're celebrating it, and in the Caribbean they're celebrating it. And it is beautiful as a cultural holiday because it's talking about economics. Right. Control your economics. It's talking about culture. It's talking about unity. It's talking about the family. It's talking about understanding ceremony and purpose and mission as opposed to super exploitation and consumerism.
Yeah.
So we have to give thanks that the brother.
Well, our young brothers and sisters are so self-consumed with selfishness. I mean, when you're young, all you care about is what you're getting.
Well, we've implanted that in them.
Well,
in other words,
isn't that in all youth?
You work hard to get a big car for yourself and to make sure your children get the bikes and the other things. So we need a mental change, and that's what Kwanzaa is. Thinking at that time of the year, the winter solstice, end of December, and then the beginning of a new year. And so for me, it's a great moment because Dr. Yosef Ben Yaakov, our great brother who just passed, he was born on December 31st.
That's right.
And
that's
so
right, that's right.
that's one of the last days of Kwanzaa.
And Dr. Clark was what?
The next 24-hour period is Dr.
January
Clark's,
1st.
January the 1st. So
Isn't that amazing?
it's meaningful. It speaks to the fact that we came out of the oppression of post-slavery Reconstruction and the beatdown of the new Klan, the rise of the Klan. And then these brothers were born to carry the seed of a new consciousness, a new era. So we have to celebrate it. And so I'm glad
And your
that
birthday is?
well, I'm one of the Capricorns too, but
Yeah.
I'm at the
But
end,
you-
January
what?
the 19th.
19th.
But
So
in
you're not
between
far
that
from
is
that.
Muhammad Ali. In between that is Michelle
Muhammad Ali is
Obama.
what?
He's
January
the 15th.
15th.
Michelle Obama is the 17th. John Hope Franklin is that. Camille
Michelle
Yarber.
Obama is.
Yes, Camille
Oh,
Yarber is
wow.
I have two nephews. One is the fantastic Congressman lawyer Hakeem, but he's August. But his brother, who's a brilliant scholar at Ohio State, he's January the 13th. And so you have Dr. Clark, Dr. Ben, Chancellor Williams is in that category.
Okay.
And you have the great Africans from the continent. Dr. Sheikh Anta Diop was born.
Diop.
Yes, it's I think it's December the 29th. And so, of course, that's coincidental now. Lloyd Strayhorn will have to give you the scoop on all of that.
Yeah.
But we're
yeah,
going to
yeah.
make it, we're going to take the Kwanzaa period that Maulana Karenga has blessed us with, and we're going to try to create a commemoration of Dr. Clark's work and Dr. Ben's work and legacy that they've left us. And so next week we will be celebrating on the 31st, Dr. Clark and Dr. Ben and what they gave us.
Okay.
But we'll also be celebrating predecessors of yours like Gil Noble, who
my man.
partnered with these
my
brothers.
hero.
Elambe Breath, who worked with Gil and raised the African consciousness of Gil's work. And our great sisters, Mother
Few
Keffa
people
just
know
left us.
that Alambe worked with Gil on his show.
For 17 years, he provided an African consciousness that Gil needed to go along with his brilliance and timing and how you put things together. And so we want to have December the 31st at the National Black Theater, a celebration of legacy.
Okay.
And the family is invited. It'll be between 4 and 10 on that 31st. But we're not celebrating the new year. We're celebrating the new era.
Okay.
The new era of us understanding what has happened to us, what needs to happen to us, and what we need to put in place. Just like Maulana Karenga could break through all of the negative and come up with a positive, we have to take the devastation of the death and destruction of our young people and Amadou Diallo and all the rest of it, and then come up with a control of our communities, not by an alien police force, by a police force that's a part of our communities. And so we've got to break through what we consider are major obstacles that we can't overcome. We've got to overcome them. So we want to give thanks to you and to your partner for having this type of program.
Well, you know,
deal
you're
with
always
things.
welcome. But due to the rain, you were tardy.
It wasn't rain. What was happening was a thunderstorm. The clouds broke. It was ridiculous. I had to dive over puddles of water to even get here. It's amazing that the Creator allowed me to even make it. I mean, however, the next time you invite me to the program, I may sleep in one of these hotels down here, the Trump Plaza. I may get a room at the Trump Plaza. Yes. Well, if not the Plaza, it'll be the Trump Tower. I may get a room at the Trump Tower, and I'll just hold on and come.
He doesn't own the Plaza anymore, right? He gave that up.
I don't know.
That's
No,
been nice.
he lost it. But
lost
don't worry, he's got a hold of something else
got
now,
enough.
which is the mind of these folks who really.
How do we deal with such a... Now, he's a typical New Yorker, right? A braggart.
Well,
and
I would
crude.
extend it. He's a manifestation of white supremacy. And he's
Amen to that.
institutionalized it in terms of money speaks volumes. You could say anything, do anything.
Right.
And if you have money, you can say, I'm a millionaire and I
Right.
have a billionaire. I have a right to do it. We need to study him. People don't need to get upset. They need to study this
That's right.
phenomena.
That's right.
And he's in the best tradition of this nation, which was founded on slave master
Greed.
bastards. I hate to say it, but at this point, truth has to be told.
Right.
The nation was founded not on freedom, justice, and equality. It was founded on the exploitation of the Native Americans stealing their land and the super exploitation of African labor, and it went on over a period of hundreds of years. So we need to know the truth, and that's why we need to commemorate, celebrate our history, our legacy, and make that the strength that we move forth in the world.
All right. So Trump is just a classic example of white supremacy.
Trump is the perfect thing that happened to us at this point. You need to study what money does to you, what power does to you, what white arrogance does to you, how you can abuse women and then say you love women, how you can say you like black people and do the thing, just what he did with the Central Park brothers, that speaks volumes about this man.
He called them dog.
And he called for their execution and no apology whatsoever. So we need to study him. Don't get upset. He's the best thing that's ever happened because you had the traditional politicians in there, and they can't get no traditional thing because this is about affirming white privilege, white supremacy, white systems.
Republicans are.
No, whiteness is beyond Republicans.
It's not the parties.
Don't you think Hillary's doing a little something for us?
Give Hillary her kudos.
Her husband was the first black president.
Okay, but we don't.
He played the saxophone.
Well, I played the sax too. I played for 15 years.
I'm the first white president.
But it crosses what he's doing crosses party and crosses locality, crosses religious. We need to study this phenomenon with our eyes open, with a systems analysis.
I agree 100%. It's really
If you're up Thursday night into Friday morning at 1:07 in the morning, Christmas morning, Channel 7, you'll see a production that we did for WABC for Christmas, but it's got a different emphasis.
And the production is from where?
From my church, Christian Cultural Center. And we shot it over a period of weeks, transforming the lobby of the church, different areas of the church.
Oh, fantastic.
And it's not the usual.
When is it again?
It's going to be Thursday night at 1 a.m. or
1
Friday
a.m.
morning, Christmas morning at 1:05 a.m. It'll be coming on Channel 7. And I'm in there singing and doing some other things.
So, Doc, we run out of time again.
Well, I told you, we're going to solve this problem because if I don't get
sleepover.
No, if I don't get Trump Towers, I have stayed many times at the Holiday Inn on 57th Street. So that might be the spot.
All right.
That's better.
And again, thank you for coming to the Gilchrist Experience, and stay tuned for more. And Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
And then join us at the
and
National
watch
Black
Santa
Theater.
Claus. You know, he might come in and take some
cookies.
You know.
He told me I couldn't have
the God in me loves the God in you, and power to the people. God bless.